In the distant millennia of the Dawn Era, humanity once dreamed of an endless Earth, vast, endless forests stretching to the horizon, oceans shimmering like silver, an atmosphere so pure it embraced all life, and a land rich in priceless minerals. But the dream shattered under the weight of ambition. Forests withered into ash. Oceans dried, rivers shrank into cracked scars on the earth, and once glorious megacities became rusted steel skeletons amidst chaos. Earth, the cradle that nurtured all living beings, became a painful memory of the limits of greed. Yet, even amidst the ruins of their own making, humans refused to surrender to fate. They looked to the sky, pointed their lenses toward the distant void, not to atone, but to search for a backup planet, a place where their descendants could continue the journey of survival. In the year 3124, the Earth Union's first interstellar probe discovered a strange green planet in the Lac-Kim cluster. Naming it Zeyra, after the ancient goddess of life, the initial analytical data returned with figures that thrilled humanity, an atmosphere similar to Earth's, a multi-layered biological structure never before seen, and most importantly, a planetary core emitting energy 12 times stronger than any known source. Even more astonishing, scattered mineral samples hinted at the presence of Zerium, an element that, until then, existed only in theoretical physics. Thus, the Humanity Reconstruction Project was greenlit, not only driven by survival, but also by the promise of limitless profit. 3 years later, Arconis, a space fortress the size of a city, glided into orbit and landed on Zeyra's lush green meadows. Aboard were thousands of engineers, soldiers, mining robots, biotechnological devices, and one unyielding command: take it at all costs. When their boots first touched the alien soil, they gave no thought to local sovereignty, only to the energy readings. Millions of megawatts radiating, enough to power Earth for centuries. But unlike the Earth they had lost, Zeyra breathed. The air tasted sweet with living crystals. Trees pulsed with rhythmic vibrations, and lakes shimmered with starlight, glowing when creatures touched their banks. Among silver moss-covered mountains lived people who did not survive with steel and walls, but through harmony with nature. They built no fortresses, carved no names into stone. They simply existed, inseparable from the planet itself. On the first night, a small explosion echoed from the technical sector. Communication devices fell silent, and a patrol squad vanished without a trace. Surveillance footage captured a streak of blue light flashing past, then nothing. The command was clear: increase extraction. Eliminate the threat before it spreads. Combat drones and aircraft swarmed out, spraying defoliants on the forest, burning suspicious zones. Toxic smoke spread. The first creatures fell. Atop the northern cliffs, a pair of glowing blue eyes watched in silence. It was Lyra, one of Zeyra's children. She did not raise a weapon, did not scream in hatred. She was simply sad. Sad for the planet that had nurtured her. Sad for the alien species that could never appreciate a gift too grand. She turned away, melting into the quiet forest, leaving behind the image of towering harvest machines, plasma drills boring into the earth, and trees marked with fluorescent paint, signs declaring, "We'll take every last drop." In the heart of the base, Elan, a young mining engineer, stared at the energy chart. The spike had reached dangerous levels. His heart sank. The Zerium reserves here could fuel Earth's geobiological reactors for another 300 years. He turned to his teammates, voice ringing. "Just one mine like this, we could save all of humanity." No one responded. They all knew, to save humanity, they would have to destroy another civilization. They were far too used to packaging their conscience into a chest called strategic idealism. That night, as the base lights dimmed, Elan stayed awake. He felt a pull between his heart and this strange new planet, a faint call. He didn't yet know what it was, only that it was enough to realize. This wasn't just a mining site. Behind every Zerium crystal, there were souls crying out. And for the first time in his life, Elan began to hear those cries. Zeyra was no longer a commodity for mankind. She was a living entity, a breathing being, a deep green heart in need of protection. In the darkness, Elan closed his eyes, simply to feel, for the first time. He knew he was wrong to have come here without asking. Above the distant sky, Zeyra's fire smoldered, awakening the will to survive in those who thought they had conquered the stars. Elan couldn't sleep. The steady sound of the drill, the neon light reflected on his face. But his mind was drawn toward the depths beneath Zeyra's crust. Yesterday, it was Nyra's eyes, the mysterious native, that engraved into him an unforgettable image, a forest in flames. A green creature buried in ashes. And a Zeyran girl hugging the mother tree, crying in despair. He once believed he was doing the right thing, saving humanity, but now a harsh question was rising within him. Are we saving ourselves by killing another world? The next morning, Elan asked to go down to the mine, not to check performance, but to observe. He quietly followed the mining robots to a new drill shaft. When the maintenance worker turned away, he slowly pulled out a Zerium sample tube still covered in red dust. Placing the sample under a high magnification microscope, he witnessed the crystals breathing, trembling under the laser light. He had never seen matter that seemed to have a soul. Each reflection, each transformation, evoked a heartbeat. He suddenly remembered the only time in his life he had touched soft earth, when he was a child. His father took him to watch the sunrise over a rural field. The scent of fresh rice, the warmth of the sun, the chirping of birds, and the peaceful stillness. Zeyra had that magic too, but on a cosmic scale. And what stunned Elan the most was that when he stroked the sample tube, he thought he could hear a whisper, a plea hidden in each mineral grain. That afternoon, he slipped out of the mine, passed through a corridor leading to the biological analysis zone. There, in Dr. Kirin's lab, samples of Zeyran lifeforms were stored, fluorescent plant roots, tissues harder than steel, and photosynthetic bacteria that doubled oxygen output. Dr. Kirin, a scientist who had never before voiced dissent, looked at Elan with a spark in her eyes. Do you see, Elan? Zeyra isn't just about Zerium. It has a unique biological network. If we destroy this station, the entire ecosystem will collapse. He was silent. Her words were firm but not harsh. For the first time, Elan heard worry instead of excitement. He asked Kirin, "How long until we drain the planet's core?" She replied with a cold number. Approximately 24 months at this rate. 2 years. Too fast for a generation to adapt, but too slow for a living planet. He sank into thought. As dusk fell, Elan walked along a narrow path at the edge of the devastated forest. Ahead was an electric barrier, but he slipped through a gap caused by damaged robots. No robots, no alarms, only the sound of rustling leaves, grass bending underfoot, and a few dewdrops falling on strange flower petals. That was the moment he felt the clearest rift between duty and conscience. From the shadows, Nyra appeared like a ghost, wearing a cloak woven from forest fibers. Her eyes still a brilliant green, but no longer cold. She placed a hand on Elan's shoulder, then pulled him down to sit beneath an ancient tree. No words, just the silence of shared presence. He quietly looked around, inhaled the scent of sap, felt the quiet pulse of life flowing from roots to canopy. At last, Nyra broke the silence, not with human speech, but with a sequence of resonant sounds echoing through the trees. The sound brought tears to Elan's eyes, filling his mind with images of childhood, of family, and of Zeyra. He suddenly understood. She was singing a lullaby for the entire planet, praying for its survival. She pointed toward the large trees, where he saw drill marks and painted signs. He asked in a choked voice, You're not angry with me?" Nyra used her finger to draw on the night sky, tracing the stars, then drawing down to the earth, forming the shape of a heart. It didn't matter whether it was a human heart or a Zeyran one. Only that it was a heart capable of love. She looked down at him, then gently walked away, leaving Elan breathing softly, his heart filled with the call of life. Back at the base, Elan was no longer a passive engineer. He met Lyra, an old classmate and trusted colleague, and said quickly, "We can't continue. I know we're a small group, but if we slow the extraction rate, we might buy time, or save part of it." Lyra trembled, then nodded. "You're right, I'll help you." That night, Elan quietly accessed the control system, reprogramming the Zerium pump rate, lowering it to a mere fraction. He left a hidden message. "Sorry, Zeyra. The machines slowly reduced pace, calming the convulsing core, and soothing the ravaged forest. In the security room, no alarm sounded, only a strange line of code briefly flashed and disappeared. Someone would find out eventually. But for now, Elan was awakened. He no longer saw just numbers, he saw life. He no longer heard only machines, he heard the heartbeat of a green soul. And he made his decision. From now on, he would fight, not just for his people, but for a world worthy of being called home. I'm not just an engineer, he whispered before the dim screen. I'm the keeper of the flame. Elan awoke as the morning light filtered through the glass panels of the outpost. But his heart still beat in rhythm with the Zeyra rainforest. He didn't rush back to the control room. Instead, he quietly left the concrete metal building and followed the narrow path Lyra had shown him. With each step, he felt the distance between himself and the cold shell of his exosuit fade, bringing him closer to the fragile instincts of survival. The ornamental grass was still wet with dew. Droplets rolled over his fingertips, reflecting light like emeralds. He breathed in deeply, letting the pure air soothe the ache that still gripped his soul. Beyond the scorched forest belt that bordered the outpost, Elan reached a small valley where untouched Zerium crystals still shimmered beneath a layer of translucent earth. Each shard radiated a warm energy, nourishing the ecosystem around them. He knelt and placed his hand on the crystal-laced ground, touching a vein of pure vitality. Instantly, a flow of dim blue light surged into his mind, the planetary bloodstream. A subtle pulse from the planet's core to its surface. The sensation made him shiver, his mouth dry, but his eyes wide open. For the first time, he had touched the heart of a world. A gentle call echoed through the silence, and Lyra appeared beside him, quietly observing. She said nothing, only smiled softly before leading Elan deeper into the forest, to a glowing medicinal lake. Its surface was still as a kaleidoscope, reflecting the sky and trees around it. Lyra cupped a handful of water and poured it onto a small flower by the shore. The petals opened at once, releasing a sweet fragrance and shifting to a pale violet hue. It was a sign of life's expansion, a miraculous symbiosis that occurred only when the inner waters were warm and free of impurities. Elan reached out to touch the surface, catching a whiff of moist earth, the ancient scent of life. They continued onward, deeper still, to the roots of a colossal ancient tree, Destiny's root, said in legend to be Zera's second heart. Its roots twisted and wove through the valley like a centralized neural network. Lyra pressed her palms together in reverence, then gently tapped the bark with her little finger. The air trembled, releasing a deep, resonant hum, like the lullaby of the cosmos, sung to all living beings. Elan pressed his ear against the trunk and heard, not machines, but the memories of soil, water, wind, and fire. He heard the first sigh of an ancient creature sensing humanity's arrival. The pleading songs of forest trees beneath the bite of plasma drills. In that moment, Elan collapsed, tears streaming down his face. He looked to Lyra, but she only held him silently, allowing him to be vulnerable. He whispered, "I'm sorry for everything." And it seemed as though the trees, the sky, the whole valley paused to witness his sincere repentance. From the tree's bark, a soft blue light spread across his body, as if cleansing the wounds within his spirit. It wasn't a miracle of science, but a miracle of connection, of deep empathy. When Elan opened his eyes, the pain in his chest had softened. He stood, meeting Lyra's gaze. "I'm not just an engineer. I want to protect this place." Lyra nodded, then pointed to a narrow mountain pass, where the living core, Zera's purest energy concentration, lay hidden. They crossed a gem-like stream, climbed damp stones, until a radiant light emerged from the ground below, shining through a narrow crevice. Beneath them, hundreds of giant Zerium crystals formed cathedral-like arches, glowing warmly, pulsing in harmony with the planet's frequency. Elan's eyes lit up, but Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, warning him with a glance. Any intrusion, even for observation, could cause fractures. He took out a small box containing an energy absorption probe, gently set it at the outer edge, then stepped back to observe. Memories surged in his mind: Earth's collapse, his father lost to desertification, the day he wept as the first drill extracted Zerium, He realized, every action, no matter how small, carried weight, not just for humans, but for the entire world around them. Sitting beside the core, Elan began to speak within his thoughts. If a human heart can bleed, then this is Zeyra's heart, and it is bleeding. He inhaled deeply, letting the rumble from the earth merge with his heartbeat. Lyra remained still, allowing him to imprint the moment into his soul. He knew then, he could never return to who he once was. He had touched life at its deepest level, and now he bore a responsibility not to a switchboard or a drill, but to the living, breathing network of an entire planet. They left the core as the sun reached its peak, their eyes filled with a renewed resolve. Elan was silent, but within him burned a quiet determination. He would return to the outpost. But not merely as an engineer. He would be a bridge between two worlds, between the logic of technology and the heart of nature. He would tell Zeyra's story to all of humanity, so those with a conscience might understand. This was never about resource extraction. This was about preserving life. Elan entered the control hall of the base with slow, deliberate steps, yet in his heart burned a fiercer fire of resolve than ever before. The cold sheen of fluorescent lights reflected off the control panels, which were covered in geological maps and energy readouts. Every number dancing across the screens felt like a verdict stamped against Zeyra. He weaved between the hurried backs of his colleagues, once classmates and trusted comrades. Beneath the edge of the console, his fingers brushed the bronze bracelet his father had given him before going off to defend Earth. A small talisman to summon courage. In one corner, Lyra was bent over, reconnecting an analysis module, while Kirin sorted through experimental data. Bo, the veteran soldier who had taught Elan to shoot when he first enlisted, sat quietly beside the water dispenser. As Elan approached, they exchanged a fleeting look that spoke volumes. None of them could feign innocence any longer. Elan swallowed hard and spoke softly. "We need to talk." Lyra slipped an arm around his shoulder and asked bluntly, "What's on your mind?" "The mine's output is breaking all records." Elan met her eager, trusting gaze and offered a sad smile. "We're killing a planet. Not just with machines, but with our indifference." Lyra froze, shaking her head. "That's fantasy. We have top secret orders, national objectives to meet." Kirin stepped forward, her tone calm but resolute. "I showed you Zeyra's ecosystem. You know how everything is linked. If this deposit is drained completely, not only will the forests and wildlife perish, but the planet's core will destabilize. We'll bury ourselves in a cosmic wasteland." Bo frowned, then growled, "I've fought enough. I don't want to kill anymore. I'm tired." The heavy atmosphere melted into a silent accord. Elan raised his hand and led Lyra, Kirin, and Bo to a shadowed alcove of the control room, where he had secretly installed a secondary circuit to throttle the Zerium pumps. He clicked on a small flashlight, illuminating a blinking readout in red. Flow rate, 10%. Lyra exhaled, tears welling in her eyes. "You did this?" Elan nodded, his voice steady. "If we hold this rate for another 2 months, the core might partially recover. We can't save the entire system, but at least we can buy more time." They exchanged exhausted, determined looks. They all knew this choice meant punishment, betraying direct orders and risking their lives. Yet none could erase the image of burning forests or the pleading eyes of Lyra. Kirin gently swiped the display. "If we dare to do this, we must scale it up across every well." Elan outlined the plan. Secretly replicate the reduced rate command on every drill, while generating forged data streams to Earth reporting 100% extraction. It would require time, technical skill, and absolute unity. Lyra fretted, "Are you sure? One slip up and we'll be exposed." Bo nodded. "I'll guard the engineering wing if anyone snoops." Kirin added, "I'll overwrite the archived logs. If they audit the procedures, they'll see only valid reports." The conspiracy took shape amid cigarette smoke and the glow of monitors. Lyra and Kirin manned the analysis modules. Elan worked at the central CPU, and Bo kept watch. Their eyes met, tired but resolute. When the midnight shift arrived and only dim corridor lights remained, robot sentries powering down to recharge, the group sprang into action. Elan's fingers flew across the keyboard, sweat beaded on his brow. Lyra whispered instructions from her tablet. Kirin monitored system logs, and Bo stood at the door with his hand on his holster. One by one, each pump module was throttled, forged, 100%, reports were dispatched, and the control network concealed the changes. Elan's heart thundered as the single word, success, appeared on the screen. Seconds later, alarms blared throughout the base. An internal intruder had left digital fingerprints. This was no software glitch but a manual override. Red lights strobe flashed. General Miral, who had issued the original orders, appeared on the security feed. Voice icy. Who is tampering with the data? I will find each of you. Elan and the others froze, but refused to release their grip on the consoles. Elan shouted into his comm. We did the right thing. We're saving a world. Miral responded by sealing off the engineering sector and dispatching suppression drones. Bo grabbed his flashlight and ushered them toward the maintenance tunnel. They raced down the cold metal corridors, their footsteps echoing like a frantic heartbeat. When the hidden exit sealed behind them, they found themselves in an old, dust-filled utility room. Gasping for breath, they huddled together. Lyra wept softly. Where do we go now? Elan wiped her tears and whispered. We've officially become traitors to humanity in order to save a life. Kirin spoke up. Zeyra awaits us. Lyra will guide the way. Bo pressed a panel, revealing a service hatch. I unlocked the escape tunnel. Let's move before they lock down the entire sector. Hand in hand, they slipped through the narrow passage into the darkness, no longer to surrender, but to continue their fight in the shadows. Ahead of them, Zeyra lay cloaked in night, yet with each step this small band took, a quiet flame of hope ignited. This was more than the journey of 4 people. It was the dawn of a revolution of the heart, where betraying humanity became the means to forge a future for both worlds. The sky over Zeyra was thick with stars, and the stillness of the night was torn only by the rapid footfalls of Elan and Lyra. They moved through ancient pipelines and down the network of tunnels that Bo had pried open, until the dim glow of the last patrol flame flickered out behind them. Outside, the white flares from the mining drills spewed plumes of toxic smoke, turning the night into a streak of panic. It was the sign that General Miral had unleashed heavy weapons to crush the rebellion. Lyra paused, her glowing eyes surveying the valley below. Far ahead lay the echoing Crystal Gorge, home to Zeyra's core heart, buried beneath mounds of colossal crystals. Around its rim, the extraction machines still breathed dull puffs, even though Elan's throttling had quelled them, leaving only the faint subterranean fires. The mechanical hum echoed like a chilled heartbeat, warning that if left unchecked, the Alliance's energy bomb would shatter the planet's lifeblood. The group halted beside a sheer cliff. Lyra pointed out the enemy positions, combat drones encircling the gorge, scout drones wheeling overhead, and shock troops arrayed in battle lines. Elan had never seen numbers so vast. They lacked the firepower to fight head-on. But Zeyra had a gift that technology could never replicate: the power of symbiosis. The unity of all living things. A low horn sounded across the valley, the signal to launch Operation Free the Heart. From the forest's edge swarmed hundreds of Zeyrans, an army not clad in metal but wielding bows of living wood, shields of hardened bark, and crystalline claws honed to lethal points. Captain Rocker, Lyra's elder brother, raised his hand in salute. They formed 3 strikes. Lyra would lead one force along the western ridge. Elan and the rebels would slip through the machinery yard, and the main contingent would assault the Corps' command outpost. A haunting horn blast rang out, the resonance of nature and Zerium energy in harmony. Plasma rifles of the Alliance cracked open the night. Zeyran archers surged forward, their biopolymer arrows piercing thin armor and releasing chemical mists to blind the drone sensors. Rocker roared, for the living world, and the very rocks trembled, emitting a wall of amber mist that shrouded the invaders. Inside the complex, Elan, Lyra, Kirin, and Bo crept into the heart of the machinery. They peeled back panels, reached the Zerium conduits, and began closing the main valves. The scent of hot metal and hydraulic fluid hung heavy in the air. Hurry, Lyra whispered with folded hands. We don't have much time. Kirin nodded, fingers dancing on the control console, while Bo stood watch, finger on the trigger of his pulse carbine. With each valve sealed, Another stream of Zerium was cut off, lessening the bomb's eventual blast. Above them, the clash between Zerans and drones grew more savage. Yet nature fought alongside its children. Bioluminescent insects swarmed electrical cables, triggering short circuits. Giant wood feathers, the planet's winged guardians, swooped down to rip apart servo mechanisms. Wounded trees sprouted new limbs that launched themselves like living spears. The Alliance soldiers' screams echoed with panic. They had never faced an enemy so relentless and united. Amid the earth-shaking blasts, Elan's calm crackled with Kirin's voice. Last valve is closed. Systems stable. The Zerium flow stuttered to a halt, momentary victory. Yet from the core outpost, General Mural's voice boomed over the PA. Cold as ice. You think you can halt scientific progress? This is insufficient. Detonate the second orb. Instantly, a blood-red warning flared. A second energy bomb would ignite in 30 seconds. Elan's voice rang out. Hold fast, I'm on my way. He vaulted over a mossy rock and scrambled up a massive conduit leading back to the core heart chamber. Lyra dashed beside him, pressing a pulse jammer into his hand. Use this to cut the detonation signal. Elan slammed it onto the control panel. The countdown froze. But the station's defense protocols detected the breach and activated the sealing shutters. Heavy steel gates ground open, and combat drones poured through. Elan and Lyra stood back to back. He gripped her hand. Together, she nodded and loosed a volley of tranquilizer-tipped bolts, immobilizing several drones. Elan darted to the final control terminal, typing in an override sequence that funneled the jammer's field into the station's mainframe. The entire chamber shuddered as lights flickered in unison. Outside, the frantic battle abruptly stilled. Drones froze mid-stride, the machinery fell silent, and the energy bomb lay inert on the floor. At their feet, the core heart, Zera's living pulse, glowed softly in relief. Rocker and hundreds of Zeran warriors emerged from the Earth's cracks, triumphant cheers echoing against crystalline walls. But the victory was bittersweet, even dampened. The first bomb's shockwave had fractured the crystalline vault. Stones tumbled, and Zeran defenders fell. Elan scooped Lyra into his arms and shouted, "We must heal the heart." Lyra and Kirin activated the portable bioregenerator that Kirin had smuggled in, an array of nanites and living spores designed to bond with residual Zerium and accelerate cellular regeneration. A brilliant cerulean glow spilled from the fissures, climbing tree trunks, and wrapping around Zeran and human alike. The scent of fresh earth and dawn dew filled the gorge. Fungal networks knit broken roots, tender shoots pierced stone. All stood silent, witnessing the miracle of a biosphere protected by compassion. When the second sunrise dawned over the horizon, the echoing crystal gorge bloomed anew. The fire of resistance burned brighter in every Zeran heart, and Elan knew they had seized a turning point. Though challenges remained, they had safeguarded the very core of this world. The dawn broke over Zera's horizon, bathing the dew-drenched forest canopy in golden light after the fierce battle of the night before. In the echoing crystal gorge, where colossal Zerium crystals arched overhead, it seemed as if a miracle had occurred. Fresh moss sprouted over the fissures. Underground streams gurgled anew, and ancient trees whispered their mutual lullaby. Yet amidst this rebirth, the scars of sacrifice still remained. Elan leaned against the gnarled trunk of a titanic tree near the planet's heart, his hand resting gently on its thick bark. His chest still ached from the impact against the energy bomb console. Blood yet wet darkened his silver armor. Lyra, Kirin, Bo, and Lyra stood around him, each bearing wounds, though their spirits remained intact. Their bodies had paid a heavy price. They watched him in silence, knowing all too well that this victory had its cost. Deep below, the core pulsed a gentle, sparkling glow, Zera's living heart healing itself. Elan drew a slow, steady breath, feeling each pulse reverberate through the roots at his side. He remembered his father's words in childhood. Every soul carries a flame, keep it burning. No matter the storm. Now his flame had merged with Zera's, two streams of life force flowing as one. He offered a faint, weary smile, though his lips still tasted of iron. Suddenly Lyra bowed her head, her hand pressing softly on his shoulder. Without words, she imparted to him the ancient power of her people, a current of primal energy that deepened his bond with the planet. Elan closed his eyes and let that force flow through him, tuning into the forest's pulse, a new frequency of vibration meant to mend damaged cells. Around them, withered roots shed their gray shells to reveal vibrant green fibers, shattered stones knitted themselves back into perfect geometry. Lyra and Kirin stared in awe. It was not mere science, but science uplifted by symbiosis. Once the core stabilized, Elan slumped to his knees, breath shallow. Bo and Kirin steadied him, and Kirin poured him a restorative capsule distilled from the purest Zerian flora. He swallowed it, and the fire returned to his eyes. Pain faded beneath the surge of renewed conviction. As the group prepared to depart the gorge, a grinding crack echoed through the control station's glass barriers. General Miral stepped through the broken frame, his face ashen, aides trailing behind him. He regarded each of them with a tumult of fury and disbelief. "What have you done?" he rasped. Elan pressed his hand to the ground and rose to face him. Voice clear. "I defended humanity's home. Home is not here nor there, it is where life survives." Miral let out a bitter laugh. Then his tone softened in an unexpected way. "You defied the highest orders. Yet, perhaps I was wrong." He lifted his gaze to the sky, where Zerian birds soared in freedom for the first time in generations. Miral bowed his head and exhaled. "I once believed science could solve all problems. Clearly, some problems require compassion to heal." The group stood in silent witness to this unspoken reckoning. Miral withdrew a calm jammer and severed all contact with Earth. "I cannot decide for all humankind," he said, "but for this crew, you are more righteous than I." With that, he retreated into the subterranean corridors, leaving behind the rarest legacy, an invader's remorse. Their withdrawal was peaceful, no sirens, no drone pursuit. Zeyra seemed to awaken, clearing a path for lives guided by empathy. Before they parted, Lyra led them to the council tree, a colossal trunk spanning more than 20 meters in diameter. She placed her hand on its bark, closed her eyes, and traced glowing azure patterns into the air. The symbols materialized on the tree's surface as a sacred imprint. "You are the keepers of the flame," she whispered. "Carry it far and wide." Elan nodded. He knew their journey was far from over. They must persuade other Alliance sectors, guard Zeyra from future threats. But now he was not alone. He carried in his heart a vow to Lyra, to Zeyra. The flame never dies. When the Arcanus's engines ignited to depart Zeyra's orbit, the sky blazed gold. Columns of Zerium light shot up from the gorge like arrows of triumph. Before vanishing into the vast expanse, Elan pressed his forehead to the cockpit viewport and thought, "Live, because we chose to live rightly. And the flame of Zeyra, the flame of compassion, of forgiveness, and of symbiotic spirit, spread outward, a reminder to the universe that even in the deepest darkness, there is a fire that never goes out."